Alright guys, we are going to be starting with the DoCTalk episode 2. So, hello everyone, welcome to episode 2 of DoCTalk with Matrix.Disc, me and Rancord, my co-host. Today we've got a really exciting show to prepare it for you guys.
Hello from me as well. I'm Rankard. Today we're going to talk about the exciting decks of Ariana Mill, Ishuma Metahate, and Xenophon Agro Control deck.
Oh yeah, and just after we finish with those three decks, we are going to take into account the fact that there is this rising popularity or hate against the control decks, and we will discuss strategies, how to either play or counterplay against them.
So I guess let's kick it right off with the Ariana Mill deck, which has been a request from quite some guys to know how this deck works.
Totally, I agree with you. Why don't you tell us something about it first?
Okay, so this is an example list. It's not the list probably MKRR9 is playing. The key in this deck is to remove all damage from the enemy deck and then slowly deal damage from not drawing cards because his deck is empty and Shinoshi.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have the, as you mentioned, in the mechanics in MMDoc is that if you do not have cards in your deck left, then you are getting 1 damage for each type you would have normally drawn a card. And here you can do it either through use and well, excessive use in this case of celebrations, and through Cosmic Realignment, which forces both players to draw 5 cards, or discard their hands and draw 5 cards. And since Necro has got recycling fortunes, for Asha uses all for fortunes, and Shantiri Ruins for spells, you can do it quite effectively.
Exactly. You see there is actually more than 60 cards in the deck. A lot more. This is mainly for the reason that you don't want to run out cards yourself, because you will take damage in the process and your enemy won't, because you have only Shinoshi to really deal damage before he's emptying his deck. And you really have to survive a lot of turns, and you do this by having the usual style package, which is Stone Shield and Altar of Shadows. And also you slow down your enemy. So Pillage and Weakness, and some versions pack in Slow as well instead of the Curse of the Netherworld, which I think is a bit expensive here. To just gain time, and with more growing resources, the more resources you have, the safer you are.
Well, yeah, that's true. The cards that normally you wouldn't consider as nearly as interesting, like Weakness or Slow, that has been mentioned a little bit earlier. Well, they do get useful if you look at it from in the context of this deck, because you will be never having any creatures on the board except of this one single Shinoshi. And you just want to slow down the amount of damage that your opponent is doing, just then to wipe the board totally. And there are quite a few really nifty tricks here. But let's actually talk about the way how it deals with other decks. Not only how does it win, but how does it, well, get to the position that you can win.
So first thing, you block out the Peo Death Seekers with Earth Grasps, and there are a lot of decks who don't run any Dispel. While you can run Dispels on your own to answer really annoying cards, and because you're using so much tutor cards and the recycle cards, you can like include silver bullets like a single Dispel. You don't want to include mass Dispel, of course, because of your own Stone Shields and Earth Grasps. Or you can add a single tower. I mean, it could always be that your enemy has a big hand.
Yeah, that's true. This is a quite rough idea how the deck works and how does it look in the principle. But as you say, you can very well fine-tune it by adding a big number of silver bullets, because well, in this deck it doesn't really matter that whether you will have 94 or 80, 88 or 100 cards, right? I mean, you do want to have some probability of getting your cosmic realignment, and then continuously, you know, reusing it with Asher uses all. But all in all, you just have space that you normally don't have in other decks. It is not as tight as the other decks.
And it features one of a great combo which I really like, which is the Crystal of Power, which doubles all spell damage.
Yeah.
I mean, usually you see the Crystal of Power in combination with an Insect Swarm, but because we also can include darkness spells with Ariana, there's the Curse of the Penitent, which does half damage rounded up, and Crystal of Power doubles that. So if the enemies don't have any resistances, it's for 7 resources, complete board wipe.
Yeah, that's true. And a curious thing, I think Curse of the Penitent is the only card in the whole game that rounds the damage up. Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure it is. It is. This is just a curious thing. So how would our first couple of turns look normally?
Well, usually I wanna probably stop his 2 HP drops with an Earthquake, if I can, or just send something back to his hand with a Broken Bridge, or stop it with a Weakness. So I really wanna like don't give him too much free damage. So he's probably getting me 6 to 8 damage in the first 3 turns, and if I can reduce that with a Weakness or him not having a 1-drop or similar stuff, then I already gained a lot. And later I will switch after turn 3, 4, around that I will switch to Stalling with Stone Shields and Altar of Shadows.
Yeah, that's correct. And I would as well say one quite important thing of when we're talking about how to play this deck effectively. You really have to be quite how to say it? You have to have a light hand with playing your Earthquakes. Don't be shy with playing an Earthquake against 1-drop. You really just have to mitigate as much damage as it is possible, even at the cost of card disadvantage. But it's just a card disadvantage because you will get your Cosmics and you will get your hand refreshed every single time. So using an Earthquake against one creature or an Insect Swarm against one creature early on, it works really well. It's actually something that you have to be doing. And as Rancord mentioned, you can always, if he has, for example, 2 creatures, you can Broken Bridge the higher cost and higher damage one, and take a little bit of less damage yourself. You don't have to waste your Altar of Shadows. And in the end, since you have Asher uses all, you can always have this opportunity, this possibility of reaching to your graveyard to get an altar again, right?
Yes. So let's talk about when this deck is effective and when not, because there are some players who play it. I mean, it needs a lot of specific card to be effective. No epics here except the Shinoshi. It doesn't use Throne for the reason that that it doesn't actually help the deck accomplish much, and that you probably send back your own Earth Grasp or Stone Shield and make yourself vulnerable in the late game, which is something you cannot allow to do.
Well, there are versions both with and without Throne, and this is rather a matter of personal preference whether you want to use it or not. But since the Throne takes away all your resources, it is not nearly as powerful as the earlier version where you just couldn't play any more fortunes because, well, you could have emptied the board and then deployed your creatures, in this case deployed your Stone Shields or Earthcraft again. So I have a question to you.
Yeah.
Which deck would do really well against it?
Actually, I mean, with 90 cards, there's still a good chance that you just overrun the deck. And if you include Mana Storm or Week of Texas, it could be over so fast. Also, Dispels, he has no way in getting rid of your Dispels. So, Yeah, or Pit of Hate. I mean, Pit of Hate. After you dropped your hand, it's quite easy to beat if he doesn't get like a good start into the game.
Okay, so let's mention a couple of ways that different popular deck can exactly deal with. Um, if you're playing an Ergo or a variation of it, you have access to either dispels or mass dispels or minor recalls, right? And that's quite effective.
Yeah.
You want to put constant pressure with at least 2 creatures all the time, and then continuously force him to make the hard decisions. Oh, do I make do I waste my mass removal on 2 creatures, or do I maybe try to defend with a shield? Similarly with Kelthor, right?
Yeah, exactly. Also, like the Black Skull Crusher, in this version there's one way to deal with it, is sending it back to the hand with Broken Bridge and Cosmic Realignment after. So that's not that easy to do always. So there's quite a chance that this card single-handedly can win you the game.
Yes, I agree. And if you're playing another control deck, let's say Damiria Slowpoke, what would you do?
If I play the Damiria Slowpoke against this, I need to get out because I have no way of Dispel, and once Earth Grasp is on the table, I lost 12 damage from my deck. So what I want to do is like get as much PAO damage as I can early, and I will try to purchase Cosmic Realignment, or Asher uses all. It depends a bit where I see it. If I see 2 Cosmic Realignment in his deck, I know he has 2 on his hand, I will purge that. But if I see 4 Cosmics in his deck and only 2 Asher, I'd probably will purge the Asher.
Yeah, I agree here with you. So basically, with the Slowpoke, you want to get your powers there before an Earth Grasp land, and then, well, slow him down as much as humanly possible with removing his Cosmics or his Asher use as well. So
and rush the damage in.
Yeah, exactly. Any other important deck types that we should mention? How can they deal with this deck?
Well, I think we can leave that up to later when we talk generally about strategies against control decks, and move on to the next deck.
Okay, let's do it. So now the next deck is Ishuma Meta Hate. This is an ingenious deck. When I played in the Gintelens League against Emideus with my Damiria Slowpoke, I got beaten 1-2 by him, and the game that I won was won because I immediately purged his pardon, not purged. I used the Halls of Amnesia, right? On Strength of the Sea, and then I purged his. Okay, if they are not in this version, he was not using Snow Maidens. He was using Venerable Kappas instead, and I purged the Kappas. That was the only way I could really deal with this deck.
So this deck is pretty, I mean, it offers a lot. It offers the usual board control of Ishuma, which is better than the other Sanctuary. With the addition of Shinji Warrior as well, it gained a lot of boost. Well, like, it was missing a useful 3-drop before the expansion. And you, with Light and with Water, you like get access to like Strength of the Sea, Monsoon, Ice Shell, or Purity, which counter probably 70% of the decks at the moment, which are popular, which is Nurgle and different control variants.
That is very, very much true. Purity and Monsoon and Strength of the Sea, they are targeted meta hate, but at the same time they are versatile enough that if you get a Monsoon, not very often it is a totally dead card, right? A good number of decks play with Insect Swarms or with Earthquakes, and another good number of cards plays with fire removal. So
yeah, Forbidden Flame, for example.
Oh, exactly. Basically, every deck that has fire is using Forbidden Flame, and that Monsoon is so annoying to deal with.
Also, it's another card that makes you that opponents sometimes don't pay attention to. I mean, you know, there's even if an experienced player like you does mistakes because, well, you just didn't take in account that there is actually an ongoing spell.
Yeah, that's true. So now the question is, how does this deck deal with Nurgles? Well, I feel like through the creatures that you own that have a magic that have magic attacks, you're already a little bit ahead of the any, I don't know, Kelthur, for example, since his damage is usually normal, non-magical. And secondly, you are packing in Gazers and Sunbursts, which are mass or a little bit less than mass removals. So that's, you have a really good chance to get rid of those pesky incorporeal creatures. And if you do draw your Purity, well, his decay spitters are worse than useless because they have to poison one of their own creatures, and he cannot use his own poison counters.
Yeah. So this deck also has the Sanctuary Snowball, so that means I have a 2-drop, a Dark Assassin, or a Spring Spirit if it survives. Next turn I place the Coral Priestess and get rid of one of his creatures, and I'm having an advantage in the board. But with now Shinji Warriors and like Snow Maiden and the Shuma ability or Shanraya Guard and outmaneuver, I have the ability to come back from a lost board.
Maybe not from a totally lost board, but from a board that you're not at an advantage, because this is a very well-known weakness of most creature-based sanctuary decks, that it's not enough that you have equal presence on the board. You have to have board advantage and retain the board advantage in order to win the game. But yeah, you're right. Shinji Warriors mitigate that heavy effect of not being in an advantageous situation, similarly to Snow Maidens.
So you think that the reason why we don't see this deck as often as it probably should is because, I guess, the amount of epics you need, and especially the amount of new epics. I mean, I guess you could play the 4th Shinji Warrior as well and Strength of the Sea, so that's like 4 or 5 epics from the new set.
Yes, and not everybody has a Dark Assassin or Nurai. I need to correct my previous statement about the decay spitter. If you have Purity in game, your creatures cannot have counters put on them, but they still can be targeted. So decay spitter can target your creature, but just the just the counters will not be put on them. So I feel like this deck has got a very, very good chance in the meta, but you're extremely vulnerable to a bad hand or to a mass grave.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like most Sanctuary players fear, they go first. They have no 1-drop. They place the 2-drop. In enemy Nurgle in turn 3 plays a mass grave and his second 2-drop, and then you're pretty much behind, and if he doesn't make positioning mistakes, it's not that easy to recover. Exactly. What else you see weakness in this deck? I see the amount of HP of the creatures seems a bit low for me.
It is a little bit low, and you can see that 1, 2, 3 creatures, the peddler as well, but they get wiped by an earthquake or insect swarm. Just you know.
Yeah, if you didn't get them on soon out, and
exactly.
And so, if the enemy is constantly putting pressure, you cannot find a window probably to use 2 resources just for a spell.
Yeah, that's true. And moreover, there's another weakness to this deck. It's not as much as a weakness as it is a not used advantage. The strongest and most impressive sanctuary creatures start exactly at 5-drop, at 5 might. So we have our plus honor to Kenshis. We have our outmaneuver creatures that have finally some nice stats, survivability, and DPS. And here you cannot pack it if you want to go up to 3 with your magic.
Yeah, I think that's like yeah, the trade-off you have to make. Also, the venerable kappas who have like better stats than the rest, you don't have space for too many 4 drops.
Yeah, you can either remove some of the Wanizame in favor for the venerable kappas, or maybe snow maidens, but then you're decreasing the number of creatures that have hypnotize and can trigger your ability. Maybe Shanria guards again. But yeah, this deck can win only through the snowball.
Yes. So guys, if you have like tried this deck out or find better version of it yourself, we would like to know, because we are actually both Sanctuary fans and we are still like looking for a really good deck. There are good decks, but like those really consistent decks, we are fetching for them.
Definitely. This is so far this is the best creature-based Sanctuary deck I've seen, and it is a huge step forward to reply to the current meta, but it is not consistent enough to count on the fact that without luck you can win it.
So I see someone in chat asks if we could talk about Sandalphon Wombo combo. So what was actually the third deck we choose for today?
Yeah, I think somebody used the wishing well, because we are going to talk about Sandalphon Aggro Control by our dear friend Hydra Marine. So tell me, what do you think about this deck?
I guess everyone who has seen the Wombo combo or just the combination, let's talk first what the Wombo combo is. Mostly it's the card Ice Splinters, which does 2 damage if something gets moved or deployed in that row, and the Song of the Lost, which can where you can move around indefinitely enemy units, and you use that to move all his units back and forth until they always take 2 damage per tick, until the whole enemy field is cleared for 7 resources. And I have to say that I really love playing this combo, and I mean, I feel very clever when I own the whole field of the enemy.
Oh yeah, that's true. But I mean, I would like to talk about this combo in particular before we start talking about the deck. And there is a lot of people that are claiming that this is overpowered, or this is extremely well, yeah, overpowered basically. And what do you think about this kind of opinions? Is it overpowered?
I can agree if you play against that you feel kind of helpless, but it's 2 specific cards you need. Magic Peddler like ups your odds, but in fact you have 3 times one card and 3 times the other, and you need a combination of those 2 to pull it off.
And you need to go all the way up to 4 magic. Yes. And you need 7 resources, or 9 if there is the mana storm in the game. So there's so many prerequisites to meet to have this one-sided board wipe, that it makes it definitely is impressive if you pull it off. And as you said, the opponent must feel totally helpless, but it is not overpowered by any means. If it was one card doing exactly this, that would be extremely overpowered.
Yeah, that would be. Also, you are limiting yourself to water and air magic, and like when looking at all magic schools, I still think those 2 are the weakest overall. Well, they have strong cards, but like considering the whole pool, I mean, you normally would love to get fire or earth or darkness.
Yeah. What? All right, guys. Okay. I'm really sorry for the echo, and I'm really sorry for the short break. Fuses went off, and I lost. There was a power shortage for a moment. Yes, we were talking about lightning strike.
Yes, which will help you get through the early game, because you can't just give up all the board presence and then hoping for drawing your combo and winning the game.
That's true. And moreover, since they have only 2 magic requirement, they are a very accessible tool in the early game, because you do not have to totally skip upping your might in order to have your lightning strike and reach. It's only one requirement increase away, right?
Yeah, so you get there fast, and if you are lucky or unlucky to go first, it's even easier to up that single magic to be able to use the lightning strikes and the ice shells.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So talk us through the creature selection here.
The creature selection is rather quite simple, even though it. I mean, let me rephrase it. The numbers are quite fine-tuned, but the types of creatures are quite straightforward. So we have our set of guards for any occasion, right? We have the melee, ranged, and flyer guard. As far as I understand, the numbers are fine-tuned to respond to Nurgles with the 4 and 2 of the Elite Squire and Griffin Knights, and 3 of Holy Praetorians. Well, they are not as efficient against Nurgles as they are, for example, against Krelthors.
Or against Garants. I mean, you always see Garants.
Of course. A wild Garant appears and he kills you with his maniacs. Now you have your staple for dealing damage, Wolf Captain, because this guy is just crazy. Even with the nerf, I mean, here it's still shown with the old 2 requirement, but now it's 3 requirement of might. This guy is crazy. He's got survivability. He's your main damage output.
Yeah, exactly. Because one thing I didn't like about the deck when playing it was the amount of damage you do is not as much without your Strength of the Sea. So you probably give your opponent a lot of room to find plays, like especially against a deck like Ariana Control, where sooner or later he draws his removal, and it might, without the Wolf Captain, you're giving too much time to the enemy.
Yeah, that is very much true. This deck will not function without Wolf Captain, because you cannot dish out enough damage. I tried to play it with my one single Wolf Captain, but not enough. Not enough. Definitely not enough. And as much as Mass Grave does deal with the Wolf Captain, there is no other replacement that would be as threatening to a Nurgle or any Necropolis deck to force him to have to remove him with the Mass Grave.
Exactly. I mean, it's not always he doesn't have always like those free resource or the free card to like just, oh, I have Mass Grave, GG. I mean, maybe he wants to play his free drop, but also he wants to get rid of Wolf Captain, so he probably has to make a choice. But it's still a very good card against Wolf Captain.
Exactly. I mean, we have the Wolf Marksman and Radiant Glory as last creatures, and Radiant Glory has got kind of a counter synergy, anti-synergy with the Week of Tamed Spirits. But on the other hand, you need her to be your to be your one source of magical damage, while Nurgles rely on so many more sources of magical damage. So in total, you are actually gaining more from having a Week of Tamed Spirits in the events.
Yeah, I mean, Radiant Glory is just an awesome creature, and Week of Tamed is not out every round. So I just actually don't see a better 3-drop I want to use at this situation.
Exactly. There's no really better 3-drop. Now we see here that we have a nice combination of possible combo and a normal removal in form of Gazer and Lightning Strike. But I think that people are heavily underestimating Ice Splinters on their own. Like the only context that Ice Splinters are being mentioned is only the wombo combo, I clear your board. But what if we're talking about a situation where you have a creature or maybe 2 creatures in a row, and then you play Ice Splinters on that row? They're going to rule there.
this is a nice combination as well, that you block your lane for your enemy he can place a 6 HP creature, but well, surprise, it's only 4 HP now, and he might think about really using spells to dealing with your creatures. Also, the empty lane, maybe you can't block it, but you play the Ice Splinters and you're relatively safe from Peo, and some people don't realize that. I mean, there's always the chance with playing such spells, including yourself, that you don't that the enemy doesn't realize that he will take 2 damage.
Yeah. So there is a good number of uses for Ice Splinters than only in the combo, being it either securing a lane for yourself or securing a lane that is empty, or defending from pals. I mean, this is an Earth's Grasp that has additional ways of working as well.
Yes, that's true. So to wrap it up, another deck that is in need for quite a few epics. So if you have 4 Wolf Captains, of course you play 4 Wolf Captains.
Would you here? Yeah, I think you wouldn't play the one. You would remove 1 Loyal Griffin and add the 4th Wolf Captain. I mean, you're adding an epic for a common.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. There's one card that we didn't talk about. It is Ice Shell from this deck, and it seems that our earlier predictions are coming to fruition. That Ice Shell is actually getting some play.
Yeah, we talked about Ice Shell being, along with Strength of the Sea, using it as part of the water spell anti-OTK methods, and also Ice Shell is also good against mass removal. I mean, if you can save like your Wolf Captain from an Ariana wipe with double insect swarms, that's a lot of good news for you.
You put the Ice Shell on your Wolf Captain or on your Radiant Glory, on creatures that already do need two instances of mass removal to get rid of them, and they suddenly need 3, and they're almost unkillable through the means of damage.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that Hydra Marine did a really great job here in making Heaven viable again.
We should mention that this deck he uses constantly to reach tier 1. So this is not just an experimental deck. This is having a lot of success for him in the checkboard tournament. And we all know that the competition in ranked is sometimes good, sometimes not as good. But on high checkpoint TLO, you really have to have a good deck to compete there.
Yeah, it is showing certain signs of consistency. And just one last card I'm really curious about, and I don't really know why this single Sandstorm is here. It's kind of confusing. Why would you have 1 Sandstorm only?
Well, Hydra Marine answered the questions in chat yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
He said he doesn't really need it, but there are so many flyers and mingleys around in the form of Kelfor or Nurgle that sometimes he just needs to stall 1 turn for the combo to use the combo the turn later. So it's I think you can really safely remove that for another card. That's clear.
All right. So yeah, so this is definitely I mean, this is looking like a consistent deck, but it requires a certain playstyle. You can't just blindly put your drops on the board and expect it to work. It requires huge patience, and I would say that you really need to calculate when exactly to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I failed horribly with this deck. I played 5 times and lost 2 times. I mean, 3-2 is not a good record.
No, it's not.
Speaking of competition.
Yeah, do you have 4 Wolf Captains?
I didn't have it back then, but now I luckily got my 4th Wolf Captain.
Oh, you evil person. Give me my Wolf Captains. So yeah, I think that wraps up the discussion about the 3 decks that we have prepared for today. Let's move to the discussion about the control meta.
So the dark side of the meta.
Yes, the dark side of the meta. Let's bring up the game. so we can talk about certain cards while doing so. Why don't you tell us about what are the current decks in the meta that can be considered as control decks?
Yes, so there are some decks around that we would say are like Control, OTK, Slowpoke. There is the Demiria Slowpoke, of course, which is the most prominent and I guess the most played OTK at high level. Then there are the Stronghold OTKs, which basically use the Cat's Grand Finale and Cyclops combo. They're not as competitive, but you see them a lot around 1k elo.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are the milling decks. We have been shown Ariana Mill before, and there are also Nurgle Mills.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are the almost all fortune control decks, which would be either Haven with Sandalphon or Siegfried, or Sanctuary with Yukiko, or different heroes. It doesn't really matter which hero you take, but
Kaiko, for example.
Yeah, exactly, because you can record the payos.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think we can talk about the packages. Guys, if you have questions about control or card packages we're gonna talk, just write them down. We're gonna address them if we can during the discussion right away. So I know the most popular spell package is the Earth package. What do you get from Earth School?
Yeah, you get basically you get everything you need for a control deck. You both get damage prevention, so in form of the Earth shields, which is this is a staple in any kind of control deck. And you get basically the best mass removal in the game in form of Insect Swarm and Earthquakes. So this is all you need. You need some sort of prevention and some sort of mass removal, and you get it from Earth. Then we have as well the Air School, which is more specific, and it's a little bit more fiddly. But it is working. It is working as well to stall, right? What do we have in the Air School?
Well, the Earth School uses the Fog of War and the Sandstorm. They block the Sandstorm blocks the melee and flyers to attack, and the Fog Veil stops the flyers and the enemy ranged shooters. So. It depends a bit what your enemy deploys, how effective the spell is, and you have the Cyclone as well to block a single row. You could also block a row from deploying a Payo and attacking.
Exactly, that's a very very important usage of Cyclone to kill or prevent from attacking enemy back row creatures, and then prevent the front row creatures with the Cyclone. So in turn having a line, another row, a line to prevent a surprise attack of power. Yeah. We have the fire spell school.
Well, not much to say about fire except that it's pure destruction.
Yes, it is. We have the Forbidden Flame, the new edition, beautiful, unique mass removal. We've got the more classic Fireball, Firestorm, and Armageddon. And we have something that is a little bit more unique to fire. We have Inner Fire and Mass Inner Fire, so buffs to creatures.
Yeah, and especially Stronghold likes to abuse the buff with double attack because it's not +2 attack, it's +4, which
exactly
is really a lot for 2 resources.
Yeah, that is a lot for 2 resources, and I've seen some versions of Char decks that were using Mass Inner Fire with a good number of Kitten Warriors.
Oh, and then Stampede as well?
Yes, exactly. You were deploying your Kitten Warriors, you were deploying Mass Inner Fire and a Stampede to deal a really good damage.
So we just got a question about the Fire School there. What do you think about control decks which use immolation?
At the moment, I feel that they are extremely fiddly. You're relying on the one spell, which is by the way, it's a really crazy and cool cool idea to have a constant board removal with immolation while you have your magic resistant or magic shielded creatures. But I feel like it is too fiddly in the current state of affairs.
It's also quite expensive to get to a point where you have that going on.
Yeah, that's very true, and there are usually the heroes that would play it, they really easily get countered by a dispel or a mass dispel, because you're relying on your immolation so much.
And if the enemy plays something with magic resist, or it's not gonna, you're relying on the immolation, but it doesn't do anything against him if he uses magic resist.
Exactly. So I would say that in the moment I haven't seen an immolation deck that is effective enough to say, hell yeah, this can be played in T1.
Yeah, exactly. It takes also, it does no, I mean, it's just a board clear, constant board clear, and well, yeah, I mean, you need still some damage, and if you end up using the Cyclops combo as well, you better go off using that right away.
Yeah, I agree here. Now let's talk about the fortunes. We have a couple of different groups here. First group is the fortunes that directly influence the board. So in this group we have the one and only and beloved Broken Bridge, which is extremely efficient removal. I mean, it is a bounce, but it is a bounce of 2 creatures quite often. So we have as well the Altar of Shadows, which prevents the attack. This is again a staple of any deck, and since those are neutral fortunes, they are accessible to everybody. We've got the Wasteland, hated very much card that prevents opponents from playing creature, spell, or fortune in the next turn. And we have the Throne of Removal, I think the most hated card in the whole game since it ever appeared.
So what do you actually, I mean, against the spells, we know that there is magic resist and spellcaster. How do you deal with those fortunes like Wasteland or Altar of Shadows? If I'm playing against control, I need a way to deal with them because they're a very important part of the deck.
Well, if you already have access to the Primal School, definitely adding minor recalls. So the only card that is accessible to not a certain faction, but almost to everybody except of Stronghold.
Stronghold.
Yeah, that interacts with fortunes. On the other hand, you can, if you have access to Water Spell School, you can use the Strength of the Sea, which ignores all the effects of fortunes on your creatures.
So that means I can attack through the Altar of Shadows.
You can attack through the Altar of Shadows, and if you are using either Earthbound or Ice Shell, you are using the fact that an enemy cannot bounce you because your creatures are anchored.
So, I mean, there's a lot of option. Also, I like to mention, but rarely played, is the Tree of Truth. I haven't seen much play from Tree of Truth, but that means also that's going to catch the enemy by surprise.
Yeah, that's true. If you play Tree of Truth, it is not something that an enemy will expect. But anyway, I mean, the Heaven decks were on decline from in the new meta. Maybe things will change soon. Let's hope that the meta will be shaken a bit.
So let's move on with the next group of fortunes. we like we have the resources and like fetching cards. There's the observatory, which is the most played card of it because it allows you to simply get whatever you need, get a throne, get a tower, get a wasteland, get an altar for later. There's so much things you can get, and there are also the Arcane Academy in Call of Duty, which do the same for spells and creatures. Creatures you would mostly use for the Stronghold OTK. And then, yeah.
There's a question on the chat which is very relevant. Can you play creatures with Wasteland and Strength of the Sea up? Yes, you actually can. But no, you cannot. Yes, it prevents your creatures from being played because Wasteland works on the whole game state, and Strength of the Sea works only on creatures that are in game already. So what you cannot circumvent enemy wastelanding you on creatures with playing Strength of the Sea. Same with Fortune Word. In general, for example, Venerable Kappa cannot be played through Wasteland.
I actually think personally that at a certain point, if you got like your board wiped or cleared, and then the enemy plays his Wasteland, he's pretty much relying on like stalling the next 2 or 3 turns with Wasteland. So if I would like really think about how can I beat OTK, I would find a method to clear the Wasteland away and then just deploy something on the field. That's something he doesn't expect, and he doesn't play his game for that moment because he probably thinks he's safe once his Wasteland is there. Yeah, I know. I do that when I play the Myria Slowpoke. Once I have the Wasteland out and I have another 1 or 2 copies on the hand, I feel pretty much safe.
And very often you are trying to postpone board wiping to the moment where you can play the Wastelands. But on the other hand, when you already have done or have performed the board wipe once, it is much less likely that you will have enough mass removal to do the board wipe second time. So you're relying on those 2 or 3 turns that you will draw enough cards either to kill the opponent or to stash in your hand cards that will allow you to board wipe again. So removing that Wasteland and playing a couple of creatures by your opponent, that totally destroys your game plan.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's not like it's totally over then for the OTK, but it's getting a lot harder. And to be honest, not many players overall can really play an OTK or control deck in the situations where they're having troubles. I mean, of course, if you're just playing a creature decks and you play against the control deck and you have no counters, the control decks has an easy time and you don't need to be that skillful player. But as soon as the counters come in place, it's going to be much harder for the OTK or control deck to win.
That is so very true. The general impression that the control decks are so extremely powerful comes from the fact that people that play control decks, even if they are not very skilled, they meet opponents that are not prepared en masse to face them, so they get a lot of easy wins. And the actual testing ground for decks would be playing in the tier 1 of a jackpot, or playing against the best of the best, like namely when I was playing against Hydra Marine or Tsutsu or Nilikomes. So those players, they will know that they have to be prepared to face the control, like for example Damiria Slowpoke, and you are guaranteed that they will include counters and they will use those counters effectively, and then your skill gets tested as a control player. Yes.
So let's get a bit moving here. Talking about Sanctuary. I'm just wrapping up Sanctuary real quick. The basic combo of a Sanctuary OTK, it will win with Peo Death Seekers and Tower of Oblivion. And to achieve control, it uses the combination of throne, of renewal, and then you are at 0 resources. You use inheritance to remove either a Peo used earlier or one of the wall guards from the game to gain 3 resources. And then either with Campfire you go to 4 and Wasteland, or Sanctuary has the Avalanche to directly use that. And to fetch the cards for the combination, it has one of the best card fetchers at the moment, which is Battle Trance.
Yes, Battle Trance is I feel like it is the best fetcher because it gives you total freedom of what you want to choose. You can get anything, and moreover, it has an added benefit of being safe against discard, because you fetch it, and if you still have your draw, you can draw it in your hand, and if you do not have it, it is laying safely on top of your deck, so it cannot be targeted by enemy discard. That makes it quite secure. Of course, you can still have a misfortunate event of getting targeted by Maws of Chaos or Halls of Amnesia. I always forget what kind of halls those are. There's so many halls in the Inferno faction. They should start changing the names.
It works well with wishing well as well.
Yes,
so many wells.
It does. It does.
So tell us about the Haven cards used in OTK or control decks.
Well, the Haven has got a certain advantage on the field of gaining resources. You have the fortified outpost, which by definition your opponent will have more creatures than you on the battleground, because you're not having any creatures as a control deck very, very often, and you have the river of gems. Now, just on top of it, as a cherry on the top of a cake, you have Cassandra's Imperial Devotion that gives you both life and resources, something that as a control deck you desperately need. To follow your huge influx of resources, you are using either Unique Fortune. I think this is the only Unique Fortune in the whole game.
That is rare.
Yeah.
That is rare. I mean, the epic fortunes are unique as well.
Yep. So you're using Prison to totally lock one turn of your opponent, or you're using the usual Wastelands and deploy a board full of your Wolf Captains or Dark Assassins or whatever creature that can be effective, dealing a lot of damage.
So with the time going on, I think we skip talking more about single cards and talk about the matchups. So how to play a certain matchup. I think we just pick 2 control decks and telling how the control decks deals with the aggro decks or control mirrors, or how aggro decks deal with control. So I would like to use, of course, the Demiria Slowpoke, because it's the most used control deck, and I would also like to talk about the Sanctuary control deck.
All right. So what are you suggesting? How do we proceed now?
Well, generally, there is no much use talking about Demiria against the Sanctuary control, because the ability itself gives you the edge in this game.
Yes, definitely. Demiria is the hero that is most efficient against any control decks, because of her ability to remove spells or fortunes from opponent's hand. That is an amazing ability when it comes to a mirror, or in general archetype clash.
So tell us how you play the Demiria mirror.
Oh, the mirror is a very specific situation. From my point, playing against my opponent, I want to get my Garant Purge as soon as possible and Garant Purge his pals, because outside of pals, the opponent, or me in this case, usually has got 20 points of guaranteed damage, which in form of altars of destruction and halls of torment, and some very, very unreliable in mirrors damage from Tower of Oblivion. And the POWs, on the other hand, they are at least 12 reliable damage, which can be and this number can be increased by bouncing them back with broken bridges or with thrones of renewal. And we have no other way to deal with POWs than to Garance Purge them, because if you're playing a slightly modified version, not the classic and class version, but the one that is already prepared to face the meta version, you would be playing as well with the either one copy of Malls of Chaos to remove your opponent's Garance Purge before he can Garance Purge your POWs, and you will be playing with Halls of Amnesia to remove your opponent's, usually you're targeting stuff like the unique water epic spell, so Strength of the Sea, but not in this matchup. In this matchup, you will be definitely targeting his Stone Shields.
So the goal primarily for the Damiria Miro is to get out the Peo Death Seekers as soon as possible. Try to, if you have them on the hand, just try to get them out before he can purge that, and play every copy of Spell Shield, Halls of Torment, and Altar of Destruction, because if he removes them, you lose a lot of damage.
Exactly. You want to be, every turn you want to play all the damage you can possible with the priority of POWs, since they are so vulnerable to being purged, unless you have all 4 POWs on your hand, which would be an extremely lucky situation, because then they cannot be Garance Purged. Because the POWs cannot be discarded on the other hand, and then all the other damage, and every turn you should be trying to use your hero's ability to discard stuff from your opponent's hand.
After using the Celebration.
Yes, exactly. You first draw with Celebration, so because we are assuming that your opponent is a clever man as well. So he will know to either hide the valuable spells or fortunes, or play them. Hide them by playing Altar of Destructions and putting back on the top of the library the card that he wants to preserve for the next turn. But then you draw with your Celebrations, and well, you get this card back to his hand, and then you remove it with your hero's ability.
So if I'm actually playing a Nurgle, like the usual 4/1/1 Nurgle, or let's say I include 3 Dispels or so, and I'm going in queue, and then bam, there is Damiria, and I'm going first. What is my game plan? How should I start? What do I deploy? What do I mulligan for?
I would say that you definitely want to have a 1-drop, because that right off the bat forces the Damiria to up the magic and have to play the Earthquake if she has it, and not draw from Celebrations. And your game plan is deploying creatures that rather have more health than 3, because you don't want to be vulnerable to a single insect swarm. You continue dealing damage and drawing cards. This is a really big mistake I've seen a lot of people doing, destroying their own units and not drawing cards against Damiria. You need to remember that Damiria almost never kills with the tower. Yes, it might be a little bit faster that you die if you draw cards against Damiria, but this tower damage can maybe make your death at a turn earlier. But on the other hand, all those cards that you draw get you closer to drawing your Dispels.
So the plan should be to deploy until you know there is the tower turn coming, because there is no use of dropping a 4-drop again if you know he has 5 Destiny next turn. So this would be the time to buff your units and attack, or to use the Peo. I mean, if there's no stall or something like that. I've had like 12 games with Damiria yesterday, and the people like putting early pressure on me, using Mana Storm and Week of Texas to slow me down, and then using, before I can play the tower, which I badly need, not using more creatures, but using the buffs or the payos to deal damage, and then I use my first Throness Damira, and I already took like 8 to 10 damage, which is a lot.
That's a lot as a Damira. That's true. And one more tip. You don't want to have a full board basically ever, because you don't want to be so vulnerable to mass removal. But on the other hand, you have to feel when the Damira is going to play pals, and then you want to block everything, preferably with creatures having 4 or more life. So it would be hard for Damira to play, for example, POW, deal damage, and then thrown back POW with your creatures. Secondly, you should be rather quite careful with the amount of damage you take from the weeks of austerity.
Yes, and always after a board clean, always deploy 2 creatures. I see so many times that he deploys 1 and then attacks with a payo, and I can do Broken Bridge, Wasteland.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to have this sudden wasteland after you somehow scramble back to being able to put it on board. And yes, you have to as well pay a lot of attention to when is Damira going to play her best board wipe, meaning Forbidden Flame, because your 7 HP creatures, they are resistant to insect swarms, but they are still vulnerable to a single Forbidden Flame. So you should rather dose them. Play 1 7 HP creature and some other that are having 4 or 5 HP.
And if you get like a unique spell return or like a Stone Shield return to hand, play it immediately again. I mean, if you leave it on the hand, it's vulnerable to him. And if he just thrown you and you don't put down your magic resistance units or something like that, it's just a big mistake. And I've seen this a lot when I play against players.
And yes, if we were talking about Nurgles, but talking about, for example, talking about Kelthos, the most annoying creature you can play is the good old Crusher, because Crushers with the magic resist, they are so hard to deal with. But at the same time, you don't want to play 2 or 3 of your Crushers. You want to dose how bothersome you are to the Damira opponent.
So, I mean, is there any questions about fighting control decks? So we talked a lot about counters and how to play the early or the late game. I know that if you don't have the tools or knowledge, I think that's also an important fact. Look at the lists. Look what a control deck has into the list by either checking our show or MMDOC, so you know what's coming.
I got a question to show the Crusher, which creature it is. It is the 4-drop of Stronghold, which has magic resist and rage 1. Okay, so it seems like.
Is it OTK meta? No, we actually see some increased play of creature Damirias, which kind of keeping the control decks lower than they have been before.
Yes, I mean there was definitely a free reign of Damiria Slowpoke in the very beginning of the new expansion.
So here is a good question. What's the proper amount of anti-control cards? Dispel, Master Impel, Dispel, Cleansing Light. And I think we talked about this before. If you add 3 Dispels, the normal Dispel, the enemy can just guarantee purge your Dispel and you're out of luck. So what you want to do is like have 1 Mass Dispel, 1 Dispel, and a minor recall as well. So you can not only deal with Stone Shield, but with the Wasteland, as we talked before.
Or you want to as well, for example, replace one of the Dispels with a spell steal, because it is almost as efficient. And there is again one very big mistake that players are making when playing against Slowpoke. They spell steal the stone shield, and they play it actually instead of discarding it. Why is it a mistake? Because if it gets thrown, well, it returns back to the hand of the owner.
So, and you also don't want to use your Dispel just to get 4 damage in or so. You don't want to rush like, oh, there's a stone shield, I got to Dispel it. Use the Dispel or Minor Recall of a Wasteland. You can use when the Wasteland comes to deploy, but the stall to like deal the lethal damage to the enemies. Mm-hmm. Or at least bring it down to 3 where one Peo would spill his tomb.
Exactly.
And I definitely put in every creature decks 1 or 2 Cosmic Balances because, yeah, I know it takes, you take damage yourself, but it's a random discard for the enemy. And mostly if you're excessively using Celebration, he's drawing a lot of cards as well. And if you discard like his mass removal, which happened to me yesterday, mm-hmm. It's going to be very hard. And if you discard yourself 5 cards, that's 5 damage you take less from tower, and you only took 4 from the event. So you didn't like lose HP for that.
Yes, that's true. Cosmic, including even a single Cosmic Balance, maybe it is not a game winner, but it is a game changer. It might screw up the game plan for the control deck.
And any sort of discard from Inferno can work, of course, or anything that stops like his flow. I mean, a House of Madness, usually a control deck later plays a lot of different cards, and like stopping him from doing that is also a good idea.
Well, one of the ways to that is not explored in the current meta would be just playing the old Garant with the Pit of Hate.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of low magic creatures with Wild Spirits, Pit of Hate, Altar of Destruction, Teleport. You fireballs, you're gonna empty your hand really quick, and then you play Pit of Hate. If you play Pit of Hate and he has no board and you got some board, it's over for the controlled player.
Very much true. Very much true. So yeah, there were a couple of questions. Ziderome asks, if I have just 1 Chaos Imp, so I can't figure it out myself. Is his effect stacking?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is stacking. For each Chaos Imp, you have to discard an additional card.
So I guess we hit the 1 hour mark with the break in between. I think we were quite accurate that time.
Yes, indeed.
Let's sum it up with some general information you should be aware of. There is a chat room takeover tomorrow, which will be happening at mobcards.fr in the English international chat, where the developers and also the producer of the game will be making announcements and answering questions. So if you want to ask when does the feature come, are you working on that feature, are there any balance changes or so, this is the right time to ask your questions.
That's very much true. And you know what? I can smell it in the air. It's the air of change. Something should be changing soon. I feel it's wow. You know, I have this tingling in my bones.
We will see. Also, there's I forgot what I wanted to say here.
Obliterate is asking, why do you guys think the balance changes are needed in the game? Why don't you start with it?
Okay, so like talking about that things are too strong, there are a lot of things which I would like to see some changes to allow more play, like the magic channel creatures, or just generally cards that have been designed too weak. But at the moment I feel that the magic meta with which is played with mostly Nurgles does need a hit. I don't know exactly where. I dislike passive events, so I would hit any passive event, but I guess the developers will find a solution. If it should be creatures or events or fortunes, we don't know.
Or maybe there will be no balance changes at all, and we'll be left with this Nurgle meta forever. Surprise, surprise!
And no, we know nothing about November patch, and we cannot tell something about things that are in progress that haven't been mentioned officially by Ubisoft. So
yes.
Even if we know something, we couldn't tell.
Yes, what we do definitely can tell you is come over to the chat room takeover. There might be some very interesting informations, and even if there will be no groundbreaking, earth-shaking, meta-changing informations, well, you always get to ask the questions you wanted to the developers, like why is X and Y in the way that Z makes it bad, or whatever.
And Asa, the community manager, teased us today and said there was a question in forums, will there be any new upcoming balance changes? And he said, check out the chat room takeover tomorrow. He cannot say more, but I guess that's a hint, right?
Yeah, I think this is a good hint.
So, thank you guys for your suggestions we have received. We need a lot more of them. We constantly read the thread. Can you probably show it again in the forum?
Yes, of course. Let me just find it really quickly.
The chat is in momcards.fr, the international one.
Momcards.fr, and they have the English version. Can you please help me out with the link, with the topic?
Yes, a second. Yes, because we still have more. We would like to do some, like, if there are tournaments, we would like to do some wrap up about the tournaments once they start coming, or more of them are coming. So I posted it here in chat, in the Twitch chat.
Yep. Please check out this forum thread and tell us what you think. Tell us how we can improve our program, and if you love us, please express your love in that thread as well, or you can express that love through following this stream. You can as well follow my Twitch or my Twitter or Facebook channels, pages. And Rancord, what about your side?
Well, I've picked up a cam now, and I did some streaming lately, so I'm gonna do more streaming. And if you like to have some commentates or to help on deck building, which I would love to do from time to time, or some replays to commentate in the stream, so I'm up for anything that helps the community, and I enjoy playing the game.
Yes, so please follow Rancord as well, and that's pretty much it from us.
So if you missed the beginning or something, the video will be uploaded soon. So I will Matrix will make an update to the patch, I guess, tomorrow, with exact times at what place in the video we have talked about which topic.
All right. So thank you very much for watching. Look out on the forums and on our pages for the next announcements of the future installments of the DoCTalk. And yeah, Rancord and Matrix.Disc tuning out.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.